Welcome back, everyone. I am Justin with Parity InfoSec, and today we're going to be covering the newest retired box from HackTheBox, and that is Book. Book, coming in at a medium difficulty level from Mr. Reboot, was an excellent box. I'd almost say it's pushing on the verge of being a hard box, just because there were a few challenges along the way that we're going to cover. And it starts off with a section on web browsing, getting into the login on that system, and then taking advantage of some of the parsing inside of the application. This web application has a variety of upload, XHTML. We will be looking at some of the XSS, some cross-site scripting, and how we can get that to the point of file inclusion. We'll deal with some SQL truncation issues that allowed us to get to that admin on the web application, and that was all part of trying to get to the foothold. Once we get the foothold, the user will be able to do some enumeration, and we'll have to bring out PSPY, PSPY, and look at some of the processes that are running intermittently, in this case Logrotate, and we'll be able to use a local privilege escalation called Logrotten. I ran into some issues trying to follow similar directions that you can find online, so you really had, in my case, I had to customize how I was going to do the final exploit. So with that, we will get started on the box. Alright, so let's begin with a simple nmap. I like to do mine very basic first off, just so that I can get a little bit of a head start. So do an nmap. Verbose 10 10 10 176. We'll go ahead and start with that. So I see right now there's port 22, port 80, so we've got web, we've got SSH. We'll go ahead and do some more scanning now that we've got some basics, and we'll do scripts and all versions. We'll go ahead and let that run. We'll head on over to our web interface, and we'll go to that address 10.10.10.176. So 10.10.10.176 takes us to a login page. There's a couple different ways that you can go about this. A lot of people will start off just trying to hammer it, brute force it, but as always, I like to start with view page source. Got a lot of style sheet information up at the top. Nothing really, no information really divulged. So we'll skip all the way down. And the first script that you see down here contains a function for validate form. So the form that we're about to work on, there's two fields that it's going to validate. It's going to validate the name and the email when you're trying to submit it. The name should not be more than 10 characters, and the email should not be more than 20 characters. We'll go ahead and play around with this a little bit later, but for right now, let's just keep that in mind. I'll close this out. And again, you can try and brute force, but there, over on this side, is a sign up, a simple registration. So we'll go ahead and just set up a test account. So test. Alright, I'll save that just to make it a little bit easier. And we're in. The first thing that you're seeing is that it's a nice little library. You see that you're signed in as test. Go over here and take a look at our profile. Profile has a name, an email, and a role. Now the name should be 10 characters, so that's 4, 8, 12. It lets us update, but as you can see, it trimmed the name down to only 10 characters. It's a little strange. I can't do anything with the email, can't do anything with the role at this point. So in the settings, we are working on user login tracking feature. Hope to make it available soon. I didn't see anything like that that really came into play until you start getting into more of the administrative side of the house. So back to home. You can take a look at this page source, but there's nothing there. you start to flip through these pages. So the first thing you see is the books. This is the collection of books that are currently available. Book title, author. These don't have any authors put in for them. And then off to the side you see flowers. It says link. Down in the left hand corner you can see file 1, file 2. This will be file 2, file 3, file 4, and that kind of takes us to the end of that page. If you hover over, now you won't see it when you're taking a look at the other sections, but when you hover over books, from books, you can get to 2 additional forms, search and feedback. Search allows you to put it in, so one of them was lady slipper. So you can just go ahead and type in lady, and you get lady slipper. Comes up here, and there's a download link there, file 4 in this case. The additional form, feedback, allows you to put in a book title, followed by some feedback. So you can say, lady, I really like this. When you submit it, it comes back with that response for your feedback sent to administrator. We're going to need to use this feature a little bit later on, but for right now, just keep in mind that anything you type in that box goes to the administrator. So we'll go to collections at this point. Collections is the opportunity to do a book submission. So you can put information in here. Mine, done by me. Go ahead and go in here and browse. And we'll just say, I'll upload a text file. Thanks for the submission. We will evaluate and update the list. So you put the book in. So let's go back to books and see what's there. It's not there. Let's go ahead and do a search. Mine. Oh, but it is there. So mine by me. Here's the download. You see in the bottom left corner there's a number 91753. It's a randomly assigned number to the file that we're going to open. When you open it up, we get an error. In this case, text plain not supported. We can go back and try and put in a different file. See what happens. So you come in here and you have the opportunity. Let's try a different one. We'll try HTML by me. And when I say browse, we'll go in and I'll just take us to our normal HTML variety of things. Here's an old exploit that I've got, 4664 upload. So we'll go back to books, search, and in this case me, nothing. Okay, HTML me, it's there. Now we have the number 39236. Go ahead and open this up. Now we've got HTML is not supported. What you're going to start seeing is it wants a PDF, but it doesn't necessarily say it needs to be a PDF because what it's trying to do is parse anything that it gets put into it. So we're going to come back and we're going to take a look at the parser later on, but just know as you start to put things in, it's parsing it into a format. So we've looked at collections, feedback, search, books, contact us. Now contact us talks about the admin. We now know the admin is admin@book.htb. The login that I used was test@mine.com. So the login for your admin is going to be that right there. That's important when you try to go back to the main page. We're going to try and take advantage of this admin account. We'll see a couple different ways that we can try things before we really get successful. So let's go ahead and log out and see what we're looking at on the request forms. So we'll come back here and we will try admin@book.htb and we'll say admin. We'll try and just do it. Oh, nope, not going to work. So right away, they're going to tell us that's not right. So we'll go ahead and sign up. Let's try admin at book.htb. Admin. A little bit of a spelling mistake, but the user exists. So at this point, we've seen a couple of these messages. Let's go ahead and take a look at Burp Suite and see what we can maybe do by manually manipulating the message on its way out to the server. Because right now you're starting to see some client-side restrictions. The last message that was sent, admin at book.htb, admin, and the response comes back, user exists, kicks you back to the index page. Let's see if we can mess with this. We'll go ahead and send it to a repeater with Control-R. Control-Shift-R takes you over to the repeater. Let's see what happens if we make admin more than 10 characters. We know that it cuts off, right? So admin is 10. Let's call it admin again. So really, it's not seeming to be too concerned with the name. The big thing here is going to be your email address. That is the login in the account that will be associated with this. So I've got 5. This is a single character. 6. That's 4. That takes it to 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So we'll say 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. We'll go one more, 21. When we submit that, it's going to go ahead and come back with a response. Everything looks good. It's going to redirect. But what you got to remember is this is the full email address that you've put in. It's 21 characters, so it's actually going to need to be one less. But if I come back to the main page and I put this in as the email, we'll take one A off because it's going to truncate it. We'll go ahead and change this to an to a @ to make it happy. And then if I say admin, we're going to go ahead and get in. There's our name, admin, because it truncated it down. If we look at our profile, it's going to be this name. Well, one of the funny things that MySQL does when you enter in these fields, if it truncates it to 20 characters, if it's white space, MySQL will also truncate that prior to making the command. So we'll go ahead and log out here, go back to our burp, and we're actually going to make these A's into spaces. All right. So we determine this is 5, 10, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And we'll see what happens if we just put in 20 with white space. Well, the user exists because right now, when it's processing the user, it's taken off the white space and it has determined admin at book.htb exists. Oddly, if you add one more character, you make it 21. When you send it out the door, it's not going to recognize it as the same. However, it will still truncate it following that command. So this is a matter of the logic being flawed. So this time, it took it, but it's going to truncate it to this when it goes to put it into MySQL. So it does the check first. The logic is poor, truncates it down. So now we've actually taken admin book.htb, we've registered it, but in registering, we've actually overwritten what existed in the MySQL database. So if we come back in here, we sign in, admin at book.htb, admin, we're in. Let's go ahead and take a look at the profile. It's still a user account, but it's an admin. So what can that tell us? Let's go back and take a look. Was there anything that came out of our Nmap scan that was anything different? We've got some information, 2429 Apache. Nothing crazy. So let's go ahead and try Gobuster. Dir, u. Get our IP in there. Use my standard word list. User share word list. Dirbuster. directory 2.3 medium. I'll go ahead and just make it 75 threads for right now. And I just want to see what kind of folders exist. Timeout exceeded while waiting headers. Go ahead and try that one more time. Take a look at all the commands. Looks good. So I've noticed with this box a couple times that it's just a matter of it kind of times out, you know, come back up. I've had to reboot it in the past, and then it came up as I was waiting to reboot. So let's go ahead and do it one more time. And right away it processed, hit that first awesome one, admin. Let's go take a look at admin. And it redirects us to a very similar login page. But you see on the right side, it authorized people only. There's no way to log in. Take a look at the source. There's no sort of checks here. This is a very stripped down panel. So we'll go ahead and try the test login. Nope. That's not going to cut it. Let's try admin at book.htb. Admin. Nope. Now this is where it gets a little funny. Because of that slight reset, it's resetting itself. When we lost connectivity, we also lost our login. So we'll go ahead and process this again. We'll go ahead and send that change. And if we come back in here, so with that connectivity issue that we have, we'll go back, we'll open a page at the first login and get ourselves a new session ID. It still sees as login over here. Nope. So it's reset over here. We'll go ahead and just submit a similar burp request all over again. I'll go ahead and copy this field, and we'll just go back to our proxy, go to the latest one with the PHP session, send it to repeater, copy over this field, send it. Got our 302. So we'll come back here, admin at book.htb, admin. Got us in. We'll go right over to our admin panel and try that again. It has been really flaky as I've been trying to go through and set this box up for this video, so just bear with it. There will be quirks. There's a lot of try again, reset the box that you'll hear, but this one tries to fix itself, clean itself, so every now and then you've just got to kind of clear that session ID, go back and reattempt the same steps. The faster you can do it, and there is an easy way to script this out. Super simple, put it in Python and you'll be able to get this done. But I like to show kind of the process of how I got to where I'm at. So now that we're in here, okay, we're signed in as admin. We can see there's a few different fields here now. So there's a users page. All right. So Fractal, Frac, is actually playing around in this box at the same time. It doesn't show up as one of the default accounts normally. So just an oddity. I'm sitting here working against somebody else that's playing on the box. We'll go over to messages. Okay, there's a message in here. There's nothing there but a@b.com. We can delete the messages. We can delete users. But we'll go back into the feedback. Hey, this is my message from earlier. Lady, I really like this. So in collections, there's two different fields. So we'll go ahead and export the users and see what we get. Go ahead and open it directly. Hey, and there's Fractal. Here's my account that I made earlier, all those accounts. So what it's doing is it's parsing the information that's in the database and putting it into a PDF. So it's doing dynamic processing. Let's take a look at collections. So collections is going to be those books that we had before. So at any point in time, we'll go back over to the regular library and I'll go into collections and I'll say me, mine, me, however I want to do it. Go ahead and upload that 4664 HTML again. Submissions in there. We'll go back and we'll pull our collections again. And there it is. And it's even got the link. So it allows the link to be in there, puts your information in there. So that gives us an avenue to insert information that when parsed, gives us the capability to do code execution. So for this next step, we're gonna have to go in and put in some additional information. We're gonna go in, we're gonna put in XSS over XHTML, and we're gonna try and get some local file inclusions. So the field that you're going to be looking at is one of these two, either title or author. So we'll go back to this page, title, author. This tactic I actually pulled from another user. We'll go ahead and put them up here, Noob Ninja. Noob Ninja, there we go. All right, and he put this out back in 2017. We'll see what comes up on this page. All right, so he's got a local file read via XSS in a dynamically generated PDF. That's exactly what we're starting to see here. So if you go down the page, he went through and tested and determined that if there's a field there, you can put some code and allow it to do scripts and execute. And as you go down here, this is his final XML HTTP request. And it allows, when it's processed by the parsing tool, it'll go in, it'll write the response to what it gets. And in this case, it's going to get Etsy password. And it's going to write it into the response. And it's going to put it into that PDF. So we're going to go ahead and try this. And I'm just going to do a copy. I'm going to put it into the title. And I'll put mine in here. What the heck? Go in here. I like putting in a PDF because it's really looking for a PDF in this case. Yeah, we'll go to my downloads. So this is just a copy of the same exact one.pdf. Go ahead and upload it. And it's going to be sitting in that collections list in the admin panel. So as we attempt to get the parser to do dynamic PDF, we open it up. We've got code execution. Here is the Etsy password file. In this case, we can go down. We can see the 1000. So when you start getting into the users that were added, you've got a username reader. Okay, reader is going to be that user foothold that we're going to get in the system. You can see it is a MySQL database running. Nothing else out of the ordinary. So we've got code execution. One of the oddities of this box is you can't go too fast because it's still got information from the previous input. So if I were to go in here, I'll go ahead and paste the same thing, and we'll go ahead and say what Etsy hosts. I'm going to browse. I'm going to put that same file back up, upload. When we come back to the admin panel, we rerun that same exact parse. If it hasn't been long enough, it's going to kick back the same exact thing. So in this case, it did wipe itself. it's not seeing the Etsy password, and it's not available to give us the Etsy host file. So our user doesn't have those rights. So we'll go and get a little primitive about it and just say, give me the user. We know it's home reader is the home directory based on that Etsy password file we saw. And just give me user.txt. And we go back and we pull it again. Boom. So we know that we're getting code execution at this point. It's nothing strange or odd. We give it a file and it will get it, copy it in here. The problem is you still don't know exactly what files exist on the file structure. So the user.txt guessed. The Etsy password, we know everybody can see that. So at this point, you have to enumerate what kind of files are out there that might be able to get you that foothold into the system. For this one, I kept playing around, and really, we're going to come back to one of those favorite ways to get into a box, which is using the SSH against them. If we have the local file inclusion from this user, we can try and pull the same information this user has for its SSH. In this case, we'll go to the .ssh and we'll ask for the ID RSA key. That is their private key that allows you to SSH in as that user without a password if you have that key. Not all the users are going to have this. It's semi-rare. There's other opportunities where you can write into the authorized keys file, but we'll go ahead and see if this exists. And when we open this up, what you're going to find is there is an RSA key. So we've got this person's SSH key. There is an oddity, so we're going to talk about this for a little bit. It's a real big pain when I was trying to get this accomplished. And part of this stems from I changed versions of Kali in between the time that I originally did this and the time that I did the write-up. And that first version of Kali had a different PDF viewer. It actually didn't have any, and I was using Libre. So we'll go ahead and take a look at this. This is the file in the current PDF viewer, Atrial. If we expand it out, you're going to see it just kind of drags it out, makes it a little bit bigger. We can try and just zoom it down to 70%. So that's our key. See if I can copy from top to bottom. Oh, that looks pretty good. So we'll copy it. We'll go back over to our window. There's our Gobuster, nothing really came up. So in HTB book, I'm going to just do a nano ID RSA. This looks a little funny. If you've seen ID RSA keys, you know that they kind of fit into a block structure. You're going to kind of see it all squared off on the end here. If you're not familiar, just keep that in mind that it should look like a block of code. What happened in this case is the PDF viewer is cutting it off. It's cutting off that information. You can see there's letters kind of running over, and it doesn't allow you to copy it. Okay, so we're going to save this as, we'll go into HTB. I'll come down to book and put it in here. So we're going to try a couple different ways to take a look at it and see why there's an issue reading it. I want to try and open it up in our browser. Opens in our browser, looks the same. Man, that kind of sucks. Okay. If you do a Control A, copy, you come back over to your Nano window, and we'll just paste it in here to take a look. That time, it doesn't carry over the new line. But when you come across, you're going to see it does have a little bit extra. It starts the second line at that G8M right here, and it ends this line at NHY right here. So you are getting the extra letters, but it's a little bit of a pain because you don't have the characters. You could run a little Python script that just says after this many characters, new line, new line, new line, new line. It's one way to go about fixing this problem. The way I went through it is I originally opened it in Office. So we'll open this up and I'll just say, let's open that file. Book. In this case, you can physically see the letters after they've run across. LibreOffice allows you to see that. But when you go to copy, these are actually individual fields. So you're stuck again with an oddity of how do I copy this? How do I get this information out to my browser? How do I get this to work? In this case, I did a little bit of an end around. None of this is really great, but I went ahead and I just export as, or export. And it doesn't give you a lot of options, but it does give you XHTML and HTML. So I go ahead and I saved it into an HTML, export it, and I reopened it in my browser. So I'll go ahead and try this again. File, open file. My HTML is in there now. Wow, that's super ugly, right? It's okay. Just do Control A, copy, come back over to our terminal. Let's take a look at this one. Well, that one's now in a block. That's okay. But there's a lot of extra lines. So let's go ahead and make this our final, just because it's probably the closest, the easiest. I'll leave that first line in there so I don't have to fix it again. And then from this, just super simple, delete and down arrow. All right, and then I'll go in here and I'll just take these back to 1 space per, and I will save this file. So we now have our IDRSA. Whenever you're trying to SSH into a box using any kind of private key, you need to make sure that it is locked down. So right now, if I try to SSH in as reader, and I'm going to go to 10.10.10.176, and then I say we're going to input that key, and it's going to be ID_RSA. I'm going to get an error back. Well, that's a different error. I'm going to get an error back from the system because I'm trying to use an unprotected private key file. So anytime that you're trying to use a private key file to SSH in, you just need to make sure that it's at 644 permission level in order to open. Otherwise, as you can see on this first line, it's asking, we're going to forget about it, bad permissions. We're going to go straight to your normal, what's your password? So I'll control out of that. And all of this to do a chmod 644. Or I mean, it is a 644, my apology. You need to take it to a 600. Just block everybody else out except for that one single owner. We'll do an IDRSA, and then we'll go back and try that command again. And we're reader. We're in the box now. We're able to get around, move around. So if you do ls, you're going to see, hey, I got my user there. Cat user. You come in here. It's actually got an enumeration tool that's sitting in the system already. It's always there. That's one avenue you can go. You'll see if you run that tool, and I'll tell you right now, it's not going to show you much, because what we're looking for is a recurring but intermittent process. Unless you catch it at the exact point in time when it's showing that process, you're just going to miss it. So we'll go into a couple other tools, but as you can see, there's another file in here as well. There's a folder called backups. I love backup files. So in here we've got 3 files: access.log, log1, and log echo. A little strange, but that'll come into play a little bit later. So we'll go ahead and start bringing over tools. Do a quick clear screen, and we're going to take a look at it. So I like to hang out in the dev SHM. I'm going to go ahead and make a directory just for me. So make dir dev SHM. Imagine. Just go with image. So we'll go cd dev SHM imag. We're in there. So we'll start pulling over tools. I'm going to go over and make sure on my var www HTML folder, I'm going to start up my Python HTTP server. Start it on normal 80. Doesn't like that. We'll do sudo bang bang. Run it as sudo. All right, now it's running. So let's start with wget. Like I said a little bit earlier, you can sit down and enumerate this box, but you could be doing it forever, and it's going to be really hard to find. So I'm going to just jump right into the next tactic, and we're going to run this application. So take a look. We're going to give it chmod and give it some executable rights. All right, we'll give it a minute, and it's going to load up, and it's going to look at all those processes in a slightly different way. If you've never seen this tool, great tool. Always make sure it's in your arsenal for these weird boxes. And it'll show you some processes that you might not see based on the permissions. And we already see some odd things happening right here. It runs user sbin logrotate. I'll go real quick. Logrotate, and it's going to do it on the root log CFG. So using that configuration, it's going to do log rotate, and then it's going to run shell log sh. We don't know what that's doing. And then it starts doing its daily updates, message of the day kind of things. And as you come down here, you're going to see it again. Log rotate, log rotate, log rotate. Well, that is super, super suspicious. If I come in here and I show you that shell that was originally given, we're going to say we don't know the user password. So it's going to go through, it's going to do some enumeration. It's going to tell you about these different standard things you're looking at, and it's going to try and take a look at the processes, but you're not likely to see that process pop up because you see it kind of pop and go, pop and go. Okay. So in this one, this one doesn't really provide you any of those executables in the processes. It just says processes running with root permissions. You can bring over some other tools. They're going to show you very similar things. But knowing that we have the log rotate, let's take a look. So it was user sbin log rotate. We'll do a help. So with help, you do have an option to look at the version. So looking at the version, we have logrotate 311. Okay. Well, you can go ahead and do research. You can try and go in here. It's not going to tell you too much. So search exploit, if you've never used it, that's a good one. We'll just do logrotate. Nothing really sticks out here. You got to really dig. So there's a couple tools out there. And the one that I ran across the most was Logrotten. It's mostly focused on 3.15.1 and below. So in this case, perfect. This version is 3.11. So we should be able to use it. Okay. You can get it off Git. So the Logrotten Privesc, it's done by Wolfgang Wagner. And we're going to go ahead and pull that over to the box now. We're already in our folder that I like to bring everything into, so I'm going to just do another wget. And logrotten.c is what I called it. So let's just do a more on it. So it's going to come in here and tell you a little bit about the POC exploit that's available. Precondition for privilege escalation, it needs to be executed as root. And we're going to go into that as we start to see how the Logrotate is done. It needs to be in control of the attacker. So the log path, we did have some logs that were sitting in that backup folder, so we're going to take a look at that and see what we can play around with. And then any option that allows us to make a new file. That was a challenge that I ran into a bit. Every time I tried to make a simple, sticky bit binary, it just was not working for me, but I was able to get a reverse shell. So we'll go ahead and show you that here in a minute. So the first thing you need to know is, can it compile? And then you got to build a payload. This is a pretty simple payload, and we'll talk about some of the challenges with that one. I'll go ahead and copy that. And then you're going to run the exploit. So we'll go ahead, go back down, and this is where it gets into the code, so we'll quit. First thing I like to do, make sure it's got GCC. Cool. If it doesn't have GCC, you can try and compile it on your host system, but it doesn't always work. Sometimes there's some compatibility issues. In this case, we've got it natively, so we're just going to run it. So I'm going to name it Logrotten as the output, and we'll give it Logrotten.c. We'll just go ahead and compile that. So go ahead and take a look at this again. So at this point, you're going to prepare your payload by echoing this command into a payload file. I got that. Well, that did not copy right. Let's go ahead and clear that screen. We'll try the head command again. So head in 40 Logrotten.c. We'll try and copy this again. All right. So in this case, I'm going to run my host. And we'll just set a random 999. We're going to put it into payload file. And it's just going to say if, and it's going to run this because it's in backticks. It's going to execute it first, get the ID of the user that is running this program, because this is a miniature bash program. So look for the ID. If it's equal to 0, which means it's got root privileges, then do this. So it's going to do a netcat. It's going to do attack E, send bin bash to my box at 9999. All right. So that's sitting in payload file. We'll just do a quick ls. So you got payload file and you've got Logrotten. In the command here, you actually need this to be an executable, because again, it could read it, but if it can't execute it, it's not going to be able to execute this code, this command. So we will give it executable. And we can see it's executable now. All right. So the next thing you got to do is to run the exploit. So it's going to ask for nice, but if you try to run nice on this, trying to shortcut it. All right. Well, you're going to see in a little bit, if you do try to just do copy and paste code, it's not going to work. Nice, you do not have the permissions to look at these files. But what you're really focused on is this section right here. These are your three parameters. So the program, the payload, and the log file. So let's go back and take a look at those log files that were in the user directory. There's 3 files there. 2 of them have 0. 1 has 91. So we'll say echo hello. And we're going to copy that into log.1. It's in there, it's 97. And we'll take a look at that. We'll do the same thing to log. Just do another ls real quick. You're going to see there's 6 there, 97 there. We'll go ahead and do it to log echo. lets us do that. Come back in here. What you're going to see is there's now a log1 and a log2. You're going to see log is actually back to 0. Log1 is now 6. Log2 is now 97, and they all kind of shifted down. So what you're going to see is that log rotation is focused on what's in access.log. So that's the one that you're going to want to go after when you try to do this. So I'll go up here, and we'll go ahead and copy that command. Now we're going to have to edit a little bit because now we've changed directories. So we'll say dev shm, and then we're going to say imag payload file. Now that we're sitting in this directory, I like to always kind of call it with a full directory path just in case. So home, reader, backups, and then we're going to do access log just straight up. And I forgot to change the name on this one. So this one is also going to be dev shm imag Logrotten. All right, full pass, run it. So it's going to be waiting for rotating on that access.log. It needs something to prompt it to change. We need to put something into the input. And there's a couple ways to do it. You can try and background it and run another one. I found it a lot easier just to open up a whole new window. So we'll open a new one. And we'll go do the same thing we just did. Go in here and we will SSH into reader. And we'll give it that ID RSA key again. So we've got one reader here. I'll go ahead and move them over in panes just so it's a little bit easier to tab back and forth. This reader is waiting for a change in the log. Well, let's go ahead and clear this out because we're going to need to open up a window on 9999 because we should be expecting something coming from the box. So we'll go into backups and I will do the same thing I just did. So echo hello. And we'll put it into access log straight up. That worked. Come over here and you'll see that it came through and it said renamed backups. Backups 2 made the symlink 1 second before writing the payload, so it executed. It sat there waiting for that change to execute. But if we come over here, we're really not seeing anything. Well, that's a little strange. So let's try and just run it ourselves using the reader user. So nc, and we'll say attack e bin bash 10.10.10, or this one's actually our box, so 10.10.14.54 and 9999. Ah, we got stuck with a non-E netcat. So this is just a limitation. I actually have one that I can pull over. I like to pull it over just in case I run into issues like this, and I have the ability to wget or to curl, bring it over. There's also PenTestMonkey's reverse shell cheat sheet, and we're going to go through some of those options here right now just to make sure things are running. Okay, so I'm going to go over to the reverse cheat sheet and I'm going to bring this over. If you haven't seen it before, really cool tool. Just a variety of Bash, Perl, Python. If there is a programming language that you can do a reverse shell in, PenTestMonkey has put it into one easy page. Okay, in this case, I'm going to go through and I'm going to rename it. So 10.10.14.54, and we're going to go to port 9999. Run. Okay, that looks like it ran. We come over to this window and you can see that I've got a reverse shell. Yay, who am I? I'm reader. So we know that that works. So at this point we can put it into the payload and it should execute as root. So I'll exit here, clean that up, start my listener again. So let's go ahead and copy this. We know that this works. And then we'll just do a nano of the payload. So dev shm payload file. So That reads a little strange. Not sure why that says 1000. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that we do a backtick. And this is going to be ID tac U backtick. And we'll get rid of this reverse shell, the netcat reverse shell. And we're going to leave that ampersand sign in because I ran into that issue as well. What you'll see is once it gets done kind of run in that first execution, it's going to kill your shell, and it's going to do it over and over and over again. Using that ampersand kind of leaves it as a separate process. So this all looks good. We'll go ahead and close this out. Now, our command that we ran is still going to be Logrotten payload file access log. So we'll go ahead and run that again. This is where some people get a little confused because it's genuinely a race condition. So it ran. We may or may not have a shell. We don't have a shell here. The reason is because it is with that race condition trying to beat it. So you're going to have to do this a couple times. And with this application, you really need to give it a second to allow the logs to rotate. Otherwise, you're going to get write permission errors. So I think that's sufficient amount of time. We'll go over here and we'll echo that again. Ran pretty fast. Still nothing there. It got really frustrating because you really need to make sure that the command works prior to executing the first time. And then it's just a matter of trial and error, hoping that it works. That one took a little bit longer. Still nothing opening up. And we'll just keep doing this. I mean, it's so frustrating, but it's part of the job sometimes. And it's very similar to a lot of people that are familiar with the Microsoft exploit. On Metasploit, you would just sit there and bash away 067 and just try and get it to work. And sometimes you'll see that this Logrotten actually locks up. You just got to kill it. It is not a perfect process. Come over here. Oh, we did have a shell. That's why it was hanging. So we'll go ahead and clear this and try again. See if we can get that shell. Run that, run that. I like to just make sure that it runs first. Okay, you see it said waiting 1 second. Take a look over here. Sometimes it's a little bit delayed. No. So we'll go and try it again. Nothing. There's a few other folks out there that execute this with the sticky bit. Like I said, I had a problem with the sticky bit. You see it did not say done on that command, but it opened and died. So this is a really frustrating part of this box. Now, I was able to get this to actually stick and hold earlier. I really can't explain why it does when it does and when it doesn't, because it is hodgepodge at best. That time I didn't have my listener open. So now we've got our shell. So we're hanging out here. And we are root. So run a couple commands. Who am I? I'm root. Cool. We're going to go ahead and cat. We're going to cat root.txt. Got our root.txt. Perfect. Just like I try to do on some of my other boxes, we're going to go ahead and just do an MD5 sum of etc shadow, just to show that this is legitimate and complete. So there's your etc shadow MD5 sum. This whole box was painful at times to just kind of wait. As you see in this folder right here, it's got a clean backup, it's got a clean, it's running cron. It's doing a reset. So the box was set up to maintain itself, which is great. You run into those issues, some of these boxes, you have to reset them by the user, and you're fighting other users that are trying to do it. This box did try to keep itself clean, but in doing so, you got to run a little bit faster than the cleaning program. So if you script it out, this is a great box. If you didn't know some of these tools, when you start talking about PSPY, the Logrotate was a new one for me, and then definitely the PDF parser. So at this point, we can kind of go back and we can look at that PDF parser. So we'll check out the HTML here, get into that folder. All right, so there's all your files, and then we'll go into admin. And we will go ahead and do a more on the collections, because the collections is the page that we actually ran it on. Oh, I did not get an answer. More takes a input, so unfortunately we've lost our shell. We'll go ahead and kill this, come back in, run another one. Hopefully we can catch that shell pretty quick. Once we see that it hung up, so we got our shell. Hopefully it doesn't crash on us, and it does. Frustrating. So the one thing that I forgot to do, did it before, it's getting that persistence before you start playing around, especially on this box. There is an SSH private key for the root as well. All right, so there we go there. I'm going to say cat.ssh id_RSA. Try and get that before it crashes. All right, so let's go ahead and make this a little bit easier. I'll go ahead and copy this. Copy. And we'll go ahead and kill this shell because I just don't want to deal with it anymore. I'll clear the screen. We'll go to that folder. We'll do book, and then we'll just do root RSA. Paste that in here, exit out, and we're going to remember, set it to 600 for root_RSA, and then we'll just SSH root. Don't have to say that, it'll default to root when you start going to these other boxes like that. So 176, give it that key. And you can see it's trying to run those commands that I asked it to run earlier in the background. It's trying to run that dev connection. You can see where it got into some refusals, some issues where I didn't have my tool set up correctly. But now we have SSH into the box as root. You shouldn't have any issues anymore. All right, so let's go check out that var HTML. We're gonna go into admin, and now we can say more collections. Let's take a look at it. So if you do go in and you look at the script, there's a db.php. The DB has the database credentials. You can try and go in there. It is a rabbit hole as far as I could tell. I was able to get in there and get the password without having to reset admin. Once you got in there, you could pull the password that way. But you kind of had to get into admin before you could see the PHP code. So it really becomes chicken or the egg. You kind of have to have admin first. You can see a bunch of references to book.htb. I did not go ahead and put that into my Etsy password or my Etsy host file this time. Didn't see a need for it. I was able to do everything just by using IPs. But you'll see as it starts to get into these, and you try to get it to run the commands that are on this page, it's going to try and get the users, and it's going to prepare it by saying select name and email from users. So those two fields that we put in there, name and email, it's going to take a look and say, okay, you're admin, let's go ahead and execute this code. When it tries to F open, it's going to export, and it's going to do a file name, and it's going to write into that file name. And it's going to run this bin HTML PDF. It's going to try and export all that information. Same thing with collections, and this is where you get into, hey, this is your users, so it's name and email. There's not a lot you can do to change that. But when you look at select name, author, link, that's when you run into the issue that we ran into, where if you put anything into the author information field, you're able to manipulate what goes in there, because as it comes down through here and it starts writing things out, it's going to do title, it's going to do author, and then when it starts to run, it's going to start running that code for the first row. And when you put that code in there in between all the other brackets, that's when it executes the code. So it's really an issue with the parser that allowed us to do what we needed to do to get that foothold into the system. I think we've covered everything that's there, but if you have any questions, please put them in the fields below. Hit me up. I have all my information on this last page. So this is who I am. Shout out to Mr. Reboot. Did a great box. I really enjoyed this one, and it's good for code if you really want to dig into some of these parsers and see how they work. Appreciate you coming out and taking a watch of this video, and I'll see you guys next week with the next retired box.